Hello, Boop.
Hey, Boolo!
What are we recording about today?
We are doing a little mini podcast about It Takes a Village of Arlington Heights because if you may recall, was it last summer and fall, we had to go through our village approval processes. And if you think about people renovating or doing anything to their property, often you have to get some kind of approval. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about this, and I kind of find it a fun experience. But if I'm not mistaken, we went through in front of two groups.
Yeah,
right?
so we had to attend a public hearing for the Design Commission to review the overall aesthetics of the house, which also included the front porch. And then we had to also attend a second public hearing, this time with the Zoning Board of Appeals, to request a variance because we were encroaching into the setback. So we attended two different board meetings, and it's interesting.
Yeah, they're comprised of different types of folks, right? Design Commission is all people kind of in the industry, like architects, landscape architects, really people who can kind of look at village code when it comes to quality of architecture and aesthetics. And then Zoning Board of Appeals, like you and I could sit on that board one day and say, hey, does this pass? Does this not? What have you? So that was kind of interesting. But if I think about it, I know we were a little bit wondering, will we get that front porch passed by the Zoning Board of Appeals? That's the one really to approve the variance. But the Design Commission, we sort of thought, hey, we'll go in there. It'll be smooth sailing, easy. And it kind of was for us because I think we have a design that fits in nicely into our neighborhood. And of course, we had been getting neighborly input on our plans anyways. But we saw a little drama in that one too before ours.
Yeah.
Which was interesting.
What happened there is there was a builder that was also, going before the Design Commission to get his plan reviewed. And there were also residents that had attended the meeting who actually live on either side of this proposed new home that was being built. And they were there to object to the overall size of the home because they thought that it really changed the character of the neighborhood. And so we listened to this somewhat contentious back and forth.
It was contentious.
And what we appreciated about that experience is that it really it kind of hit home to us how important it is to enroll your neighbors and make sure that everyone knows what you're going to do. I mean, there's one thing about having a right to do what you want to do. Everyone has a right to build, but then I think we also have an obligation, especially us with our project, and we're just of the mind that we feel like we want to enroll people versus just do things based on what our rights are to do them. And so that was just important to us to kind of see that in action. And that was great because, it also showed us, well, here are the concerns they have. Well, obviously, one of the concerns is they're afraid that, a home like that will compress the soil. And it's built up a little bit higher than the grading. And so all of the runoff from the rain would basically flood either side. So that's what they were concerned about. And that was interesting to see that. It was also interesting to see the comparison of what the current home looked like, our current home, compared to the homes to the left and the right of us on either side with our neighbors, and then what the proposed home would look like so that we could see exact scale to show that we're not building a monstrosity, but something that still does stay within the general character of the neighborhood. So that was an interesting meeting for us.
Yeah, because our architect had to prepare all that paperwork, and so some of that was just showing elevations. And that's, I think, what was striking to me is as I listened to the hearing before us, I think they did show difference in elevations with this new build, right? And these other neighbors who weren't so happy, and it was such a huge difference. So yeah, that process or that commission meeting, I think, did make me very grateful that we had already been thinking about our neighbors as community, such a huge pillar for us. The other thing I was really grateful for in that meeting, and it helped me see kind of all approval processes like this as value adding versus, oh, it's another hoop to jump through. Like, here's an opportunity. We got some really good input, for example, on the color of our home.
Yes.
We got some good input on the porch, right? And the look and feel. And so our architect went back and actually Mike Coleman did a nice job incorporating that input, which then set us up for the next hearing, which we were, I think rightly so, a little concerned because how do you make sure a porch is seen as answering a hardship, right? Addressing the need of or the situation of a hardship. And so we went into the Zoning Board of Appeals hoping we would get the okay for the porch, because we really were starting to realize aesthetically that house needed a porch. And just on a heart level, we wanted a place to hang out. We wanted a functional front area. So we went to the ZBA, and that was...
And here's where Amy really shined, because Amy stood up in front of this board and basically told our story and explained that we wanted to have a formal front entrance, but we didn't want to just have a small little portico that just functioned as an entryway, exit, enter, get home from work, leave for work, that sort of thing. But we wanted something that actually said hello to the neighbors. We wanted something that actually, invested in the neighborhood on Drury Lane, where we decided to stay. And I think that won them over very quickly, because it really spoke to how important we think the community is here. And that resonated with them, because again, this wasn't a board made up of industry professionals. This was made up of citizens, of people, sort of like, it's a review board basically asking a cross-section of citizens to say, hey, we want to encroach about 6.5 feet into the setback distance. How does that feel to you guys? Do you guys feel that that really is an eyesore? Is that really going to change the character of the neighborhood? What do you guys feel about it? And they all reviewed that, and they felt that that was perfectly fine. They were actually encouraged. They were encouraged by our entire project. They thought it was fascinating. So
well, and what we said in terms of hardship, the point I made was, in the 19 years we had lived at 631 North Drury Lane, we had one person in that whole time go to the front door, which was on the north side of the house. And if you recall, one of the members of the ZBA actually said, yeah, I did do my homework and I drove around your neighborhood and I realized I couldn't find a front door. So these guys were really dedicated volunteer citizens in the community being on this board and really hearing our story. And thanks. The acknowledgement, I had fun speaking. It was a lot of fun speaking. And I will say that we had the support of neighbors, and that was the important thing. We had been enrolling our neighbors and sharing our story and wanting their input all along. So we literally had neighbors write us notes. We had a couple neighbors offer to come to the meeting, and they came to the meeting and spoke on our behalf. And that was hugely helpful too, because we did have a little bit of a challenge there too. We had an individual come who completely, had some points to make about the project and the porch and what have you. And I think because we had general neighbor support and pretty much everyone on the street, and we had our story together, and Mike Coleman did all the homework, did all the paperwork correctly, it was kind of an easy yes. Like, these guys were like, yes, we wish more people thought about their neighbors like this in the community. So it was actually a lot of fun. So, if I think about kind of what we learned, and tell me if you have anything else to add, Mike, but I feel like, first off, the way I look at it is, it's all about seeing these kind of approval processes as value adding. Like, what can we learn from it? What can we get clearer on in terms of what we want, why we wanted a porch? That hearing made us really think, firmly about and crystal clear about why we wanted a porch. And we got the added benefit of feedback from the group, particularly the design commission. We got ideas and enhancements to our plans. Involve your neighbors, right? Enroll early and often, and think of this as a community project, not just your own, because you're living with people all around you. Know your audience. If I think about it, you and I both got to know who was on the design commission, and, these are industry professionals. Made more sense for Mike Coleman to primarily address them. We didn't even get up in that meeting. Nope. We answered a couple questions, but that was it. Whereas I think it made sense in ZBA, we planned to talk,
Yeah, one of the things, back to the design commission, actually, the one question that we were not asked directly, but our architect, Mike Coleman, was asked was, what's the plan for this deck above the garage?
Oh, yeah.
And they had said that,
yes.
they didn't find that people really used, garage decks very well at all, so that they became just like, something to construct, but they're not really
or a party
used.
Deck.
So they weren't really, sure what our purpose was for that. And that gave Mike an opportunity to explain the vision for that roof terrace, which was essentially a place to grow fruit and vegetables protected from rabbits in a sheltered microclimate that's really going to replicate the, sort of the climate of North Carolina up in Chicago. So it's going to be great for growing watermelons and great for growing, hot peppers and whatnot. So
and they like that.
Yeah, they thought that was cool.
They were like, "Oh, this is good. This will actually be used versus unused."
Exactly,
space or party space.
it's functional space. So
yeah.
so that's why we appreciated actually having to go before these commissions. It gives us a chance to sort of, gave us a chance to explain our story. So, and that's certainly what Amy did during the ZBA meeting.
Philo.
And so, yeah, she did a great job. And it was fun because it just seemed like it almost seemed like it was too easy. But I realize now we had done a lot of homework beforehand.
Yeah. We did a lot of homework, and that's actually a good point, because it's like you got to know your audience and you've got to know what you need to do to give them what they need to hear. And so it's doing the homework, but the homework also was all that paperwork, which just shout out to Mike Coleman for filling all that out. You remember you and I reviewed stuff and all that. The only thing to be always aware of, though, are just logistical things, right? Part of homework. So we originally were going to be on the docket earlier. And because of a mailing and because of a missed address, right, we had a little bit of a delay. It was fine. It all worked out. But that gets back to the homework part too. Know your story. Know why you're going in front of folks. Know your audience. Do your homework. Make sure the paperwork's filled out. Make sure the mailing gets to where it gets to, because we had a little bit of a delay because of that. And then I think your whole point around how we were able to make our case, and I was, to the ZBA, that is such a powerful one, which is tell your story. Like, we are just humans living in neighborhoods, living in towns, living in cities. And when we do something to a property next door, the person next to us just wants to be respected out of courtesy. Why are you doing this? What's your story? And usually when one human talks to another about a story, it usually works. People understand.
It does. You know? And I would just add to that as far as doing your homework. So one example is one of the documents we had to submit was the warranty deed for the house. When we bought the house. And I hadn't looked at that document for, I don't know, 19 years. Or I guess when we bought the house. And so I was finding all these other like mortgage documents that we had. And I thought, well, maybe that's what they want. And, I put that up, and of course I'd get feedback saying this is not accurate documentation.
Right.
So I think I learned a lot about just like, basics, like always have a folder of all of your important house documents where they are easily accessed. And
great point.
Also have a digital folder of those same documents so that, you're not spending all your time, finding the piece of paper and then scanning the piece of paper and then having to email what you scanned. So I think just for us instructionally, it's like if we had to do it all over again, we would have had, all of this stuff kind of lined up before. But anyway, we learned. We got through both of the both of the reviews, and obviously, but at the time of this recording, that foundation porch is built. Not just the foundation, the porch itself is built. Which
we're standing on it, looking at the neighborhood already, even though we're still mid-construction. It's very, very exciting. So hopefully these points can be helpful to others.
Yeah. So thanks for listening. Catch you guys later.
Happy Boolo!